At 2:43 a.m., Robert Hale woke up to the shrill chime of the motion sensor alert on his phone, an alert he installed only to keep coyotes away from his livestock. The farm was 30 acres of isolation in northern Montana, surrounded by dense pine walls that swallowed sound and light. He never imagined anything bigger than a hungry deer or the occasional scavenging bear would trigger the system. Still half asleep, he reached for the phone on his nightstand. Motion detected. Barn entrance 2:42 and 18 seconds a.m. A single video thumbnail preview frozen on the screen showed something impossible. A silhouette, massive, hunched, wide, blocking the entire barn doorway. The frame was grainy infrared and washed in white outlines, but proportions were unmistakable. Whatever it was stood nearly half again taller than a man, with shoulders like stacked boulders. Robert blinked hard, sat up, and replayed the footage. The creature moved, not like a bear, not like a man, something in between, but too large, too fluid. Its arms stretched forward, fingers long enough to look wrong, as if nature hadn't intended joints that size to bend with that much control. The barn door groaned quietly on the camera audio as the figure eased it open rather than forcing it. That alone told Robert he wasn't dealing with a typical predator. Bears break things. Mountain lions slip through gaps. This thing inspected the door intentionally. And then the worst part. The creature turned its head toward the camera. For 1 second, just one, the infrared lens caught the reflection of two eyes that glowed with their own faint heat. Not animal shine. Something else. Something aware. Robert froze. His chest tightened. He replayed that second again, pausing on the exact frame. Two eyes. Round. Forward-facing. Intelligent. Watching. The same look a man gives a lens when he knows somebody is behind it. Robert swung his legs over bed and stood up, adrenaline clearing the last traces of sleep. His first thought was his livestock. 12 cattle, 2 horses, and a pair of goats he'd adopted because his niece loved them. If something got in there, he grabbed the .308 rifle by the bedroom door out of instinct. But something about the footage made him hesitate. Not fear, instinct. Predators attack quickly. They don't open doors cautiously. They don't examine hinges. This creature did. And that meant one thing. It had purpose. With the rifle slung over his shoulder, he made his way to the living room windows. Outside, the night was eerily still, the forest silent in a way that felt staged, like everything out there was holding its breath. The barn sat 80 yards from the house. Pitch black. No movement. Another alert vibrated his phone. Motion detected. Inside barn 2:44 and 3 seconds a.m. He tapped it. The feed struggled to load. Then the frame appeared. A massive shape moved inside the barn, illuminated in faint infrared. Hay rustled under its weight. Something metallic clanged softly. The horses whinnied, short, panicked breaths. The cattle shifted nervously toward the far wall. Then the creature stepped fully into view of the camera. Robert's entire body locked. It stood upright, heavily muscled, covered in thick, coarse hair that matted against its chest and shoulders. Arms hung past its waist like overloaded logs. Its head was large, sloped, with a brow ridge that cast a deep shadow across its eyes. But those eyes, those were the problem. They swept the barn as if scanning, evaluating, making decisions. This wasn't some myth. This wasn't a story told by drunk hunters. This wasn't a costume. Robert knew work-worn bodies, real muscle mass, real weight distribution. He knew what was biological and what was fabricated. And nothing fabricated moved like this. Suddenly, the creature's head jerked to the left. It heard something, not an animal. Robert realized with a sickening drop in his stomach. It heard the camera. A faint mechanical hum, barely audible even to him through the speaker, but crystal clear to whatever stood inside his barn. Then, unbelievably, it stepped closer to the camera. Closer, closer, until the screen was filled with distorted, swirling blur of coarse hair and heated breath fogging the lens. The audio crackled. Not a growl, not a roar, just breathing, deep, deliberate, aware. Robert took a step back from the phone instinctively, an absurd reaction but impossible to suppress. Then the creature did something he could barely process. With a slow, deliberate movement, it reached toward the camera. Its fingertip brushed the lens. Static erupted across the feed. Camera offline. Robert's heart hammered so hard he stepped back again, nearly tripping over the rug. Whatever stood inside his barn had deliberately disabled the camera. And that meant one more thing. It didn't want to be recorded. For several seconds after the camera went offline, Robert just stood there, barefoot on the cold wooden floor, gripping the rifle so tightly his knuckles whitened. His brain struggled to process the one detail that kept repeating behind every other thought. It touched the camera. Not hit, not swiped at, not knocked loose by accident. It reached for it. Something capable of that level of precision wasn't stumbling through his property by chance. A sudden metallic bang echoed through the silent night, so sharp and resonant that Robert flinched, instantly lowering his center of gravity like a man bracing for a firefight. It came from the direction of the barn. Another bang followed, this time accompanied by the panicked bellow of one of the cattle. The creature was still inside. Robert's breath fogged the window as he stared out into the dark expanse between the house and the barn. Every instinct urged him to wait until daylight, but another sound cut through that hesitation. The horses screamed. He had never heard anything like it, not even when a mountain lion had once stalked him years back. This was primal terror, the kind animals release only when death feels inches away. He swallowed hard and checked the rifle chamber. Loaded. Then he turned off every light in the house. Darkness would be his only advantage. He stepped onto the porch. Frosty air slapped his face. The night smelled wrong, thick, metallic, unsettled. There were no crickets, no owls, no rustling wind. Nature had gone silent, retreating from whatever monster stalked his barn. Robert lifted the rifle and started forward. Each step across the grass felt like walking into a tunnel of uncertainty. The moon was thinning behind a layer of slow-moving clouds, leaving only faint visibility. He kept his eyes locked on the barn, searching for movement. 20 yards away, 30, 40, then something shifted inside. A shadow, massive, passed by the barn's open doorway, blocking the faint glow from the interior lights he'd left on earlier. The silhouette confirmed what the video had shown. This creature was enormous, 8 to 9 feet at least, and thick-bodied like a silverback, but taller, more upright. At 60 yards, Robert froze. A deep, resonant thud vibrated through the barn wall, followed by the sound of splintering wood. Whatever the creature was doing, it wasn't attacking his livestock anymore. It was searching. For what? A wave of instinct rolled through him like cold lightning. Something about this creature's movement wasn't predatory. It was investigative, methodical, as though it had seen something inside the barn that interested it more than the animals. 50 yards. 40. A sudden crash erupted, and the barn shuddered. Dust poured out of the doorway. Hay scattered across the floor in a chaotic burst. Then, silence. Robert steadied his breathing. He could hear nothing now. No movement. No breathing. Too silent. His phone buzzed in his pocket, nearly making him fire the rifle out of reflex. He pulled it out. Another motion alert, but this time not from a barn. Motion detected. Backfield camera 2:57 a.m. Robert's blood pressure spiked. The backfield was nearly 200 yards behind the barn. For anything to reach that area so quickly meant it moved faster than any animal its size should physically be capable of. He tapped the alert and watched the feed. Static, shaky interference. Then, a massive figure sprinted across the frame on all fours, covering 30 feet in seconds before rising to 2 legs and vanishing into the trees. Robert lowered the phone slowly. The creature wasn't in the barn anymore. It had left. And it hadn't left quietly. It had left fast. Relief washed over him, but only for a moment, because something else dawned on him. The creature didn't flee because it sensed danger. It fled because it got what it came for. Robert aimed his rifle at the barn door and began approaching again, faster, more determined, though a cold dread pressed against his chest. At 10 yards away, the smell hit him, a foul mix of musk, wet fur, and a bitter, acidic odor like rotting bark. Heavy, lingering, too strong for any known animal. He stepped inside. The scene stopped him dead. Hay was scattered across the concrete. like a storm had ripped through. Tools were knocked off their hooks. A feed bag lay shredded open. But none of that compared to what stood in the center of the barn, a wooden crate. One he didn't remember ever owning, smashed open. He approached slowly. It wasn't just broken. It was pried apart with deliberate force, as if the creature knew exactly where the weak points were. Nails had been bent outwards, with cracked in a pattern that suggested fingers, not claws, had gripped it. Robert crouched down and inspected the remains. The crate was old, far older than anything he kept in the barn. The wood was weathered gray, the edges warped from age. Someone must have left it on the property years before he bought it. Inside the splintered remains, nothing, just dirt, some old straw, and one strange object lying near the center. A small, round stone etched with markings, spirals, slashes, lines that intersected in unnatural symmetry. He picked it up. It was warm, too warm, as if someone or something had been holding its icons before he arrived. Robert stood slowly, the stone clutched in his hand, and the truth settled over him like a cold weight. The creature wasn't hunting his animals. It was searching for this, and it found it. But why leave the stone behind? A sudden noise broke the silence, a snapping branch outside the barn. Robert whipped around with the rifle shouldered. Nothing. Another snap, this time to his left. Then behind him. The creature hadn't fled. It had circled back, and now it was stalking him. The snapping branches weren't random. They were spaced, measured, like footsteps placed exactly where a predator wants them to be heard. Not too close, not too far, just enough to disorient. Robert's pulse hammered in his neck. He tightened his grip on the rifle, forcing his breathing to steady. Fear would get him killed faster than whatever stalked the dark outside. Another crack, this time on the opposite side. It was circling the barn. Deliberately, the barn lights flickered above him. Just once, barely noticeable. But in the silence, the hum of the old fluorescent bulbs suddenly seemed unstable. He didn't like that. Any loss of power would blind him completely. He backed slowly toward the center of the barn, keeping the doorway in his peripheral vision. The stone he'd found, still oddly warm, rested in his pocket, burning faintly against his leg. The movement outside stopped. Silence pressed in so heavily that even the cattle's nervous shuffling felt muted. Then a low exhale drifted in from the darkness. Not a growl, not a snarl, a breath. Close. The kind of breath you hear when something massive stands just outside your vision, evaluating you as prey or something worse. Robert swallowed. His instinct screamed to aim the rifle, but another deeper instinct held him back. This creature wasn't just fast. Its intelligence made it unpredictable. A shot fired at the wrong moment could trigger a response he wasn't ready for. Another subtle shift outside, hay rustling near the doorway. Then he saw it. A shadow, huge, spilled across the barn entrance. Slow, purposeful. One arm extended inward first, long enough to reach nearly halfway across the doorway. The fingers were enormous, ending in blunt, powerful tips that looked capable of crushing bone with a flick of the wrist. The rest of the figure followed, except it didn't step in. It crouched just out of the light, its full body still hidden by darkness. Only faint gleams reflected off patches of matted hair. It was watching him. Robert kept the rifle leveled. He didn't blink. Neither did the silhouette. For several long seconds, human and monster held their breath in the same space, each waiting for the other to move first. Then, a glint of something caught his eye. On the ground, near the creature's feet, lay several long gouges in the dirt, perfectly parallel, smooth, fresh, as though the creature had drawn them intentionally. Seconds before he entered, a symbol, matching the markings on the stone. Robert's breath hitched. This wasn't random. The creature was communicating, or warning. The creature leaned forward slightly, and for the first time its eyes appeared. Two faint glows inside the dark, not reflective but softly lit from within, like embers too stubborn to die out. And then it did something that froze Robert's spine. It inhaled deeply, through its nose, smelling him. The sound was wet, heavy, intimate. It knew exactly where he stood. Suddenly, The horses behind him kicked and screamed, the panic intensifying until the entire barn vibrated with their terror. That disruption snapped the creature's attention away. For a split second, it turned its head, not toward the horses, but toward the far back of the barn, where the old loft door hung half open, leading out toward the woods. Something else was moving out there. Robert felt it before he heard it. The faint thump of something heavy stepping in the trees behind the barn. Another one. He strained to listen. Another step. Slower. Deeper. This one was bigger. The creature in front of him rose slightly. Tense. Posture shifting. No longer a hunter, but something closer to defensive. Its chest expanded with a low, resonant growl. Not aimed at Robert, but at whatever approached from behind the barn. For the first time, Robert understood something terrifying. It wasn't alone. A sharp crack split the night. Then another. Trees snapping, large ones. The creature at the doorway flinched, not with fear, but urgency. It backed away from the barn's entrance and looked once more at Robert, its eyes narrowing. A silent warning. Leave. Now. Then it vanished into the dark, silent, impossibly fast. Robert moved instinctively, slamming the barn door shut and dropping the heavy metal latch across it. The entire structure trembled as something massive, far larger than the first creature, moved beyond the back wall. Dust rained from the rafters. Boards flexed. Cattle shoved themselves into corners, trembling violently. Robert backed away, rifle ready, heart punching his ribs. A thunderous impact hit the outside wall. The barn shook. Hay jumped into the air. Another impact, closer to the rear corner. The wood cracked. A deep grunt rumbled through the boards, so low Robert felt it in his rib cage more than he heard it. The second creature wanted in, and it was not careful, not intelligent, not patient. It was hunting. Robert raised his rifle toward the back of the barn, just as one of the boards split clean in two, pushed inward by a thick, dark limb forcing its way through the gap. Something huge was breaking in, and the smart one, the first one, had known this would happen. The back wall of the barn buckled inward with a deafening crack. Splinters sprang across the hay-covered floor like shrapnel. Whatever was outside wasn't testing the structure. It was breaking in. The first creature, the intelligent one, had moved with calculation and restraint. This one moved like a battering ram with a pulse. A massive arm punched through the gap. Thick, formatted with mud and sap, muscles twisting beneath the skin like coil cables. Its forearm alone was nearly as wide as Robert's torso. It swiped blindly inside the barn. The air pressure from the swing hit him before the arm did. A violent gust carrying the stench of wet earth, decay, and raw animal rage. The horses shrieked, slamming against their stalls. One kicked so hard the wood fractured. Robert dug behind a stack of hay bales just as the arm whipped across the space where he'd been standing. The impact blasted hay everywhere, tearing entire bales apart like they were made of paper. The creature roared, not the deep-chested moan of the first one, but a guttural, primal explosion of sound that rattled every board in the barn. This one was chaos, unfiltered. It struck the wall again, and again, each hit widening the breach. Robert's mind raced. If the creature got inside, fully inside, he wouldn't stand a chance. The rifle might slow it down, maybe hurt it, but it wouldn't stop something with that much mass and fury. Another thunderous impact. The wall bowed inward so far that dust cascaded from the rafters like falling snow. He had to move. He crawled low between the stalls, keeping the broken wall in his peripheral vision. The cattle were bawling, stamping, trying to escape the panic tightening the air. Then he saw it. The creature's eye through the broken planks. Not glow like the first creature's, but wild, unfocused, bloodshot, enraged. It locked onto him instantly. A wet snarl erupted from the gap. Fingers the size of small branches curled inward, searching for him. The barn door behind him shook violently. Robert spun. The first creature was back. It slammed its shoulder, or something massive, against the front door. The latch rattled, but the door didn't give. The creature wasn't trying to break in. It was trying to get his attention. Another slam. Another rumble. A low vocalization, almost like a warning. It was urging him to leave. Robert cursed under his breath, realizing too late why the intelligent one had fled earlier. It wasn't escaping. It was drawing the second creature away. But he had entered the barn too fast, closing off the first creature's chance to divert the threat. Now he was trapped between them. Another smash from the rear. The gap wide enough that the second creature's head forced through, massive, ape-like, with a sloped skull and tangled for streaked with mud. Its teeth were huge, flat in the front, ripping at the boards. Its eyes, not intelligent, not curious, just pure feral hunger. Robert sprinted toward the side exit, the old service door used for equipment. He grabbed the metal handle, turned, pulled. It didn't move. Swollen from last week's storm. Warped shut. Behind him, the creature roared, ripping an entire plank free. The board flew across the barn and shattered against the opposite wall. The breach was now large enough for it to squeeze a shoulder through. Robert backed up, rifle aimed, heart pounding hard enough to blur his vision. He fired. The blast echoed violently in the enclosed barn. The bullet struck the creature's shoulder. A burst of fur, flesh, and dark fluid sprayed the wall. The creature shrieked, an ear-splitting sound that made the cattle collapse in terror. But instead of retreating, it became enraged. It surged forward, ripping more boards aside like they were stems of tall grass. Its massive torso began forcing through the gap, ribs sliding between broken planks with horrific cracking sounds. Robert chambered another round, fired again. This time the shot hit the creature's cheek, tearing open part of its jaw. Blood splattered onto the hay. But the creature didn't fall. It didn't stop. It barely slowed. It clawed through the opening, pulling itself inside. Too big to fit easily, but too strong to be stopped. It heaved its bulk forward with a sickening crunch as the remaining planks snapped under its weight. The barn shook. The horses kicked their stalls clean open and fled out the back as soon as a gap opened. Their hooves thundered somewhere into the dark. Robert stumbled backward, and his heels struck something. The stone. It had rolled out of his pocket when he dove. It glowed faintly now, not with heat, but with a dim, internal pulse. For a moment, just a split second, the second creature froze. Its bloodshot eyes locked on the stone. Its breathing hitched. Its snarl softened into a confused rumble. The first creature outside slammed into the door again, harder this time. A deep, urgent call following the impact. The stone pulsed brighter. And the second creature reacted instantly, leaping fully into the barn with a roar that shook the rafters. It wasn't after Robert anymore. It was after the stone. Robert grabbed it and sprinted. The creature lunged. Its hand, massive, clawless, flesh-thick, swiped across the air inches behind him. The impact shattered a support beam, raining wood over him. He dove out of the only opening left, a narrow feed chute near the front corner, barely big enough for a man, far too small for the creature, but not for its arm. Its hand shot through after him, brushing the heel of his boot before he yanked it free. He hit the ground outside hard, rolling across frost-covered grass. The barn behind him shook violently as the creature inside hammered the walls, screaming in frustration, its fury directed entirely at the stone now clutched in Robert's palm. He scrambled his feet and ran toward the house, but halfway there he stopped dead. Something stood between him and the porch. Not the feral creature, not the enraged one. The first one, tall, still, watching him. Its glowing eyes dropped to the stone, then lifted to him. And for the first time that night, Robert understood. He wasn't holding something he found. He was holding something he was never meant to touch. The intelligent creature stood perfectly still between Robert and the house, its massive silhouette rising like a pillar in the moonlit fog. It didn't posture like a predator. It didn't growl or charge. It simply stood there, watching him, assessing him, calculating. The stone in Robert's hand pulsed again, slow, rhythmic, like a heartbeat struggling to sync with his own. Each pulse warmed his palm with a soft throb that felt uncomfortably alive. Behind him, the feral creature rampaged inside the barn, smashing beams, tearing walls apart piece by piece. Every roar shook the ground through his boots. But the creature in front of him, it didn't react to the chaos. Its focus was entirely, completely on Robert. A low, resonant hum rolled from its chest. Not a growl, far more controlled, almost deliberate. The vibration of it tingled in Robert's sternum. It lifted one hand, slowly, palm open, fingers spread. A gesture, not of threat, but request. Give it back. The realization hit him hard enough to momentarily silence every survival instinct in his body. This thing wasn't after him. It was after the stone. Robert took a step back anyway, his lungs tight with fear. The creature mirrored his step forward, closing the distance with a grace no animal its size should possess. But it didn't bare its teeth, didn't lunge, didn't roar. If anything, it looked urgent. Behind them, the barn collapsed inward with a violent crash. The feral creature burst through a section of the wall, tearing an opening so wide the entire structure groaned in defeat. It hit the ground on all fours, panting, bleeding, and enraged so deeply the sound didn't resemble anything found in nature. It locked onto the stone instantly, then onto Robert. Its pupils dilated, its lips peeled back, and it charged. The intelligent creature spun around and bellowed, a deep, commanding roar that reverberated to the field like rolling thunder. The kind of sound that didn't express anger, but authority. The charging creature faltered, just for a second, but that second mattered. Robert didn't think. He ran. He sprinted toward the house with every ounce of strength left in his legs. His breath tore through his lungs in sharp bursts. The freezing air stung his throat. Grass whipped against his shins as he vaulted across the open ground. Behind him, two different roars erupted, one feral, one commanding. The clash of them tore across the night like dueling storms. Robert risked a glance back. The intelligent creature slammed into the feral one with enough force to send both of them tumbling across the dirt. Massive limbs collided. Claws raked. The ground shook with each impact. It was like watching two prehistoric titans battle under the moonlight. But the feral one was stronger, bigger, driven by something that stripped away fear. It threw the intelligent creature off with a violent twist and lunged again, not at it, but at Robert. He pushed harder, boots scraping across the frosted ground. 30 yards from his porch. 20. The feral creature bounded forward on all fours, covering impossible distance in seconds. Robert grabbed the railing, and something yanked him backward. He screamed as he was lifted off the ground, the force so sudden it stole the air from his lungs. A massive hand had clamped around his lower leg, dragging him across the dirt like a rag doll. Pain flared through his knee as his body bounced across the hard earth. He clawed at the ground, grabbing anything, grass, roots, stones, but nothing slowed the creature pulling him in. He twisted around and raised a rifle. He fired point blank. The muzzle flash illuminated the creature's face, its eyes wild, mouth open in a frothing snarl. The bullet tore into its cheekbone, snapping its head sideways. It didn't let go. It yanked harder, dragging him toward its jaws. Then, a shadow crashed into the feral creature's side with the force of a charging bull. The impact loosened its grip on Robert's leg, sending him tumbling across the ground. The intelligent creature rose up behind the feral one and slammed its fist down onto its back. Once, twice, 3 times, each hit producing a dull, sickening thud. The feral creature roared in pain, twisting and biting, its jaws snapping inches from the other's throat. They grappled, rolling through the dirt, ripping up earth as they fought for dominance. Robert crawled backward, dragging his injured leg, gasping for breath. His hand clutched the stone so tightly the edges dug into his skin. The pulse inside it grew stronger, faster, hotter. Then he realized something horrifying. While the intelligent creature fought to protect him, the feral creature wasn't fighting them both. It was fighting to get to the stone. He staggered to his feet, limping, adrenaline burning away the pain for now. He reached the porch steps. But as he did, the intelligent creature roared at him, not in anger, in warning. It pointed, not at the feral creature, not at the house, at the woods behind the house, dark, dense, silent. Robert's eyes widened, in the shadows between the trees. Something else moved. Another figure, tall, still, watching. Its eyes glowed brighter than the first creature's, sharper, focused. A third one. This one hadn't joined the fight. It was waiting, its gaze locked on the stone. Then it stepped forward, slowly, silently, as if it had been waiting for the exact moment when the stone was exposed, unprotected, and vulnerable. Robert's breath froze. This wasn't a random encounter. This wasn't an accident. The stone wasn't simply valuable. It was a beacon, and he had just lit it. Robert felt the temperature around him drop. Not from wind, but from something deeper, older, a pressure in the air that made the hairs on his arms rise. The third creature stepped out from the tree line with a slowness that was deliberate, almost ceremonial. This one wasn't feral like the second, and it wasn't simply intelligent like the first. It radiated command. Its posture was upright, taller than both others, easily 9.5 feet, with a wider chest, thicker neck, and hair streaked with gray that made it look ancient, not old in the way an animal ages, but old in the way mountains do. Its eyes glowed brightest of all, luminous amber, steady and unblinking. Robert didn't move. He couldn't. It felt like gravity itself thickened around him. Behind him, the two battling beasts toward each other. Roars, snarls, the crack of bone meeting bone. But even their violence felt muted now, overshadowed by the presence of the being approaching house. The third creature stopped 20 yards away. Then it spoke, not in words, not in any human language, but the sound, it had structure, intent, depth, like a low-frequency vocalization layered with meaning Robert's mind could only grasp emotionally, not linguistically. The vibration rolled through the ground and into his bones. A command, a demand, a summons. His hand tightened around the stone. It pulsed in sync with the creature's sound, responding like a tuning fork resonating with master tone. The creature lifted one massive arm, palm outward, fingers spread. The same gesture the intelligent one made earlier, only this time there was no urgency, no subtlety. This was authority, undisputed. Everything about its posture spoke the same message. Return what belongs to us. Robert took a half step back. The porch creaked under his boot. Instantly, the creature's gaze hardened. Not angry, not hostile, but absolute. He understood now. This one wasn't here to fight. Not yet. It was here to retrieve something sacred. Behind him, the intelligent creature let out a strained bellow. The feral one had it pinned against a broken fence post, jaws snapping inches from its face. The intelligent creature fought with precision, even desperation, but the feral one's brute strength was overwhelming. Robert looked down at the stone, then back at the third creature. The realization hit him with brutal clarity. The stone wasn't just a relic. It was a signal, a key, a trigger, whatever this object represented. It was powerful enough to lure 3 massive creatures out of the depths of the forest. One calm, one crazed, one commanding. And the moment Robert touched it, he became part of whatever ancient conflict they carried. The third creature took a step forward. Robert stepped back, onto the porch, reaching for the screen door, but the creature emitted another low-frequency call. This one was different, sharper, urgent. The sound vibrated the windows of the house, so hard that one cracked along the edge. The ground trembled, dust rising from the deck boards. The feral creature reacted instantly. It threw the intelligent one aside and whipped its head toward Robert, eyes blazing with renewed frenzy, as if the call triggered something primal in its brain. It charged. The intelligent creature roared and tackled again, but the feral one thrashed violently, breaking loose with terrifying force. Robert lifted the rifle and fired. The bullet struck the feral creature in the upper chest, staggering it, but not stopping it. It roared and bolted forward, hands outstretched. The third creature didn't move at all. It simply watched, like a judge observing the outcome of a test. Robert ran into the house, slamming the door behind him and twisting the deadbolt. He stumbled backward as the porch shook under the weight of the feral creature slamming into it. The wooden boards cracked. Splinters flew across the entryway. Another impact. The frame groaned. A third. The door shook violently. Hinges screeched. The deadbolt dug into the wood, trying to hold. The intelligent creature roared outside, trying to drag the feral one away. but its strength was fading. The other was in a frenzy, driven by something beyond hunger, driven by the stone. Robert backed deeper into the house. The lights flickered. The air felt heavy, almost humming. The stone burned in his hand now, so hot he nearly dropped it. The markings glowed faintly. A pulse. Another. Faster, like it was waking up. The doorframe cracked sharply. The feral creature's arm punched through, splintering wood, groping blindly for Robert, fingers scraping across the floorboards as it reached inside. Its roar shook dust from the ceiling. Robert scrambled backward, tripping over a chair. The massive hand clawed forward, sweeping the room, knocking over a lamp. Robert aimed his rifle and fired again. The arm jerked back. Blood sprang across the door. But the creature wasn't stopping. It slammed its full weight into the door. Which snapped. The upper hinge ripped clean off. The door bent inward. One more hit would shatter it. Then everything stopped. A deep, thunderous bellow erupted outside. Not from the feral one. Not from the intelligent one. From the third creature. The sound was so powerful the windows shook. Dust fell from the ceiling, and a pressure wave rippled across the floorboards. The feral creature froze mid-strike, its chest heaving, its eyes wide with something that wasn't fear, but recognition. The intelligent creature staggered to its knees, shoulders heaving, eyes lowered. The third creature stepped closer to the porch, and the feral one backed away slowly, trembling, whimpering like a dog confronted by its alpha. Robert stared through the cracked door, heart pounding, breath ragged. The third creature approached the doorway, towering over the porch, its glowing eyes fixed on the broken frame, then on Robert. It lifted its hand again, palm open. It didn't need to speak. The meaning was unmistakable. Give it back, or suffer what comes next. The house had gone silent, except for Robert's ragged breathing and the faint crackle of shattered wood settling in the doorframe. Outside, all three creatures stood in eerie stillness, like the night itself was holding its breath. The feral one crouched low, huffing, trembling, bleeding from the bullet wounds Robert had inflicted. Yet despite its size and rage, it didn't dare charge again. Not after the third creature's commanding roar. The intelligent one knelt off to the side, battered and weak, chest rising and falling in pain, shallow intervals. It didn't look at Robert. It watched the third creature with a respect bordering on reverence. And the third creature, the leader, the elder, the ancient one, stood motionless on Robert's ruined porch, its massive frame blocking half the doorway. It didn't force its way inside. It didn't threaten. It simply waited, hand outstretched, palm open, absolute authority. Robert swallowed hard. His pulse hammered in his throat. His fingers tightened around the stone, the warmth now so intense it felt like he was holding a coal from a bonfire. The markings on its surface glowed brighter, not steady, pulsing. One pulse, another, stronger, then a rapid sequence, like a heartbeat accelerating toward panic. The stone wasn't just reacting to him. It was reacting to them, especially the third creature. Outside, the feral one growled softly, low enough to sound like a rumble under the earth. It eyed the stone with a hunger that bordered on desperation. The intelligent one's gaze shifted between Robert and the stone, pained but pleading, as if begging him not to make the wrong choice. The third creature didn't blink, didn't shift its weight, didn't show emotion, but its presence felt heavier with each passing second, a pressure building in Robert's skull, like instinctive submission trying to take over his free will. He forced himself to breathe. If he gave the stone back, would they leave? Would the feral one stop? Would the elder call him off? If he kept it, he didn't want to think about what keeping it meant. The stone suddenly pulsed again, but this time not with heat. A sound vibrated through it, a faint hum, like distant thunder rolling under the earth, like a deep voice speaking to the stone itself. Then he heard something else. Whispers, asterisk, not English, not any language he recognized, but layered, old, human adjacent, like fragments of thought bleeding into his mind. His vision blurred. For a moment, he wasn't standing in his house. He was seeing black forest torchlight, a circle of giant shapes, stone pillars, The same markings as the one in his hand, screeching, a chain. Something being sealed away, a warning, a triumph, a burial, a secret passed down through generations. Then Robert gasped, stumbling backward until his shoulder hit the wall. The vision shattered, leaving him shaking, breathless, dizzy. The creatures outside reacted instantly. The feral one snarled and leaped forward, but the elder creature stepped into its path and slammed a hand into its chest, forcing it back with overwhelming strength. The feral creature skidded across the dirt, yelping like a punished animal. The intelligent creature froze, eyes wide with glimmer of something Robert had never expected to see in something so massive. Fear, not fear of the stone. Fear of what Robert just experienced. The elder creature leaned closer to the doorway, its glowing eyes narrowing as it studied Robert. Not his face, but the stone pressed against his chest. Its expression changed. No anger, no impatience. Recognition. A deep, resonant vibration escaped its chest. Quieter than before. A different tone. One that felt respectful. The stone pulsed an answer. Robert felt a weight sink into his stomach. Whatever vision he had seen, it wasn't random. It was memory, history, purpose. The stone wasn't just a relic. It was a seal, a lock, maybe even a prison. And he had just reactivated it. The elder took one more step forward, its foot hitting the cracked porch board without sound. It reached its hand deeper into the doorway, palm up, patient but unyielding. The message was sharper now. Return it before the seal weakens further, before something worse wakes. Behind the elder, the intelligent creature lowered its head in a subtle bow. The feral creature cowered against a fence post, growling softly, confused and restless. Robert's breath trembled as he looked down at the stone. It pulsed again, this time faster, frantic, like it was alive and afraid. Something else started vibrating. The window behind him trembled. The floor creaked. A deep, subterranean rumble echoed beneath the house. Short, sharp, unnatural. The elder creature's eyes snapped toward the ground. Its nostrils flared. Its posture stiffened. For the first time tonight, Robert saw fear in the elder. It extended its arm further, urgency breaking through its calm control, as if to warn him, this is bigger than you, bigger than us. Give it back. Now. Robert raised a stone, hesitating for the first time not out of fear, but out of the terrifying thought that giving it back might not fix what he had awakened. Behind him, the rumble grew louder. A crack raced along the floorboards. The lights flickered violently. The air thickened with pressure. The stone burned white-hot, and the markings blazed like molten metal. Outside, all three creatures panicked at once. The intelligent creature stood, roaring urgently. The feral creature backed away, as if expecting the earth to split open. The elder creature reached further into the doorway, not to take the stone, but to grab Robert, to drag him out, to save him. The floor beneath Robert split open. The crack shot to the floor like lightning under rotting wood, fast, jagged, unstoppable. It wasn't a simple split in old boards. It was deeper, older, a breach in something that had been sealed far below the house long before it existed. The rumble escalated into a violent tremor. Robert staggered, almost dropping the stone as the hardwood flexed beneath his boots. A second crack branched outward, splitting the floorboards like dry bone. Outside, all three creatures reacted in pure instinct. The intelligent one roared, shrieking, warning, terrified. The feral one bolted backward, scrambling away like prey. The elder stepped fully onto the porch, no longer patient or calm, now urgent, commanding. It thrust its arm into the doorway and bellowed a sound so deep the house vibrated. A command, a plea, a warning. Come, now. But Robert couldn't move. The fissure widened under his feet. The ground sank. Dust erupted upward in a choking plume as the subfloor collapsed inward, dropping the rug and several boards into darkness. A gust of cold air blasted upward, not the cold of winter, the cold of something sealed for too long. The stone in Robert's hand flared, white, blinding, violent. He screamed and dropped it, but instead of falling, the stone hovered inches above the widening fissure, spinning rapidly, its markings glowing in molten gold. Then he heard it, a voice, not spoken, not audible, but inside his skull, inside the room, inside the air itself, a layered whisper, thousands of tones overlapping. Unbound, awakened, released, Robert clutched his head and fell to his knees, vision swimming, stomach twisting as if gravity had inverted. The room pulsed, walls bending inward, lights flickering in frantic bursts. Outside, the elder creature hurled itself against the doorframe, ripping the remaining hinge free, which shattered as it tore the door aside, and reached for Robert with both arms. The intelligent creature limped toward the house, ignoring its wounds. The feral one hid behind a shed, whimpering like a terrified animal, because the thing waking beneath the floor terrified even them. The fissure erupted wider, and something touched the air. Not a hand, not claws, not anything recognizable. A shape, black, fluid, shifting, rose in the darkness like smoke underwater. A tendril of pure shadow slithered upward, its edges rippling like a flame without fire. When it brushed the air, frost formed on everything within 3 feet. The chair legs, the walls, the broken floorboards, and Robert's breath. His lungs seized. The temperature dropped so violently he felt his skin tighten. A second whisper echoed. Release, release, release. The stone pulsed brighter, spinning faster. The elder creature lunged through the doorway, grabbed Robert's arm with a hand large enough to encircle his entire upper bicep, and yanked him upward with titanic strength. But the shadow tendril snapped toward them. The elder turned, shoved Robert behind it, and intercepted the thing with its forearm. A deafening, hollow boom filled the house. The elder creature bellowed in agony, a deep, guttural sound that shook the windows. Its fur blackened where the tendril touched it. Flesh sizzled, turning ashen gray like something dead for weeks. But the elder didn't fall. It didn't retreat. It attacked. With a roar that shattered 2 glass panes, it slammed its other fist into floating stone, knocking it sideways, disrupting its rotation. The stone wavered. The light flickered. The fissure paused. Just for a moment, but enough. The intelligent creature leaped into the doorway, grabbing Robert by the back of his shirt and dragging him outside. And oh, wait. Robert choked. Stumbling across the porch as the 2 giants pulled him away from the spreading crack. The elder creature slammed its foot into the fissure, trying to stop it from widening, like plugging a volcano with brute force. The board splintered under its weight as it roared in defiance. But the shadow wasn't stopping. It surged upward again. 3 tendrils this time, looking less like smoke and more like limbs from something colossal buried beneath the earth. The stone shot back into the air, glowing brighter than ever. The house shook violently. Shingles fell. Glass shattered outward. Birds exploded from the trelline. The whispers grew louder. Unseal, unseal, unseal. The intelligent creature dragged Robert across the yard as the elder creature battled the tendrils inside the collapsing house. For the first time tonight, the elder looked desperate. Robert realized the truth as the shadow lashed upward in a twisting column. The stone hadn't summoned the 3 creatures. It had been luring something far worse. His house groaned, tilted, and then the entire floor collapsed inward. A wave of dirt, wood, debris, and shadow erupted upward, blasting through the roof in a geyser of darkness. The elder creature leaped through the window and landed outside just as the structure imploded behind it. Dust exploded across the field. The shock wave knocked Robert to the ground. His ears rang. His vision blurred. As the haze settled, Robert saw it. The shadow, rising from the ruins of his home, forming something enormous. A silhouette so massive it dwarfed even the elder creature. Not Sasquatch, not animal, not human. Something ancient, something imprisoned, something the stone was meant to keep buried. The intelligent creature crouched protectively over Robert, shaking, terrified. The feral one whimpered behind the fence. The elder stepped forward, its massive frame trembling, not from fear, but from the recognition of an enemy it had hoped never to face again. And Robert? He could barely breathe, because in the swirling dark, 2 enormous, glowing eyes opened and focused on him. Unsealed, the whisper breathed. The ruins of the house smoldered with dust and embers. Beams cracked inward like ribs around a dark, rising heart. The creature, if it could be called that, unfolded itself in the crater beneath what had once been Robert's living room. It wasn't flesh. It wasn't shadow. It wasn't anything recognizable. Its body wavered between forms, like a silhouette trapped between dimensions, too large to comprehend all at once. Its limbs didn't move with joints, but with flowing distortions, like black smoke forced into shape of something humanoid. Only two features remained constant. Its eyes, blazing, massive, white-hot like dying stars. They fixed on Robert with the cold intensity of something that had been waiting, and finally found the one who woke it. The whispering inside his skull grew louder. Unsealed after so long, unbound vessel. Robert clutched his head, falling to his knees. It felt like needles of ice were stabbing behind his eyes. His pulse hammered so violently he thought he might black out. The intelligent creature grabbed him, pulling him backward, shielding him with its body. But the shadow entity didn't look at the Sasquatch. It looked through it, as though it didn't matter, as though only Robert mattered. The elder creature stepped forward, finally revealing its full stance. For the first time, Robert saw its posture drop, not in fear but in preparation. War stance. It beat its chest twice, producing a thunderous boom. A warning. The shadow creature responded with a shriek that split the night in two, a sound so sharp it cracked the windows of the distant barn and sent a flock of birds dying midair, falling from the sky like dark snow. The feral creature collapsed, covering its ears. The intelligent creature hunched, trembling violently. Even the elder, towering ancient, carved by centuries, took a step back. The shriek wasn't sound. It was power. The ground fractured and long, jagged lines radiating outward from the shadow creature's feet. The earth beneath Robert buckled, shaking him off balance. The stone, still hovering above the crater, flared again, reacting violently to the entity's presence. Its markings twisted unnaturally, as though trying to reorganize themselves. The shadow creature's voice rattled the clouds. The seal breaks. The vessel awakens. Robert grimaced through the pain. "What vessel?" he gasped out loud, his voice hoarse. The answer crashed into his mind like a wave. "You." Robert's blood froze. The intelligent creature shoved him backward, forcing him toward the open field, away from the ruins of the house. Its panic was palpable, desperate. The elder creature charged, not at Robert, at the entity. It slammed both fists in the ground as it leapt, launching itself upward like a boulder shot from a catapult. The air boomed with the force of its movement. It struck the shadow entity dead center. A shock wave tore across the field, flattening grass in a perfect circle around the impact. The elder roared, swinging with punches that split the air. Each blow made the entity's form ripple like black water struck by stone. But the shadow creature didn't fall. It didn't even flinch. Its tendrils wrapped around the elder's arms and torso, lifting it effortlessly off the ground. The creature, 9.5 feet tall, muscle-packed, ancient, was tossed aside like a rag doll. It crashed through a fence and rolled across the dirt, groaning. The intelligent one roared in agony and sprinted toward its fallen leader. The feral one cowered, paralyzed with terror. The shadow entity's eyes flared brighter. The key hidden, the seal misplaced. The vessel unaware. Robert stumbled backward, heart slamming against his ribs. "Why me?" he choked. "I didn't do anything. I don't even know what this is." The whisper filled the air. "The one who touches a seal becomes a seal." Robert staggered. The stone pulsed once, twice, then shot toward him like a bullet. It slammed into his chest. He screamed, collapsing as pain tore through him. Hot, electric, invasive. The markings of the stone crawled across his skin like molten tattoos, spiraling across his chest, climbing up his neck. The intelligent creature howled and grabbed him, shaking him, trying to pull the stone out of his body. But the glow only spread faster, burning with impossible intensity. The entity's voice thundered again. "Unbound. Reclaimed. Mine." The elder creature struggled to its feet, clutching its ribs, staggering forward, but too slow. The shadow entity extended a massive tendril toward Robert. It was going to claim him. consume him, fuse with him. Whatever it had been sealed away from Robert was now its gateway back into the world. The intelligent creature roared and wrapped both arms around Robert, pulling him into its chest to shield him. The feral creature howled in pure terror, and the elder creature bellowed a guttural command that shook the ground. No! But the shadow entity didn't care. The tendril lashed forward. Robert's vision blurred. The markings burned, the ground shook, and then a blast of light erupted from his chest, throwing the intelligent creature backward and halting the tendril midair. For a heartbeat, everything froze. Robert gasped, convulsing as the glowing markings across his torso pulsed wildly, and the shadow entity recoiled in surprise, because the light that erupted from Robert was not the entity's. It was something else, something older, something buried, something inside the stone the entity had forgotten was there. The elder creature's eyes widened. It recognized the light, and for the first time since the shadow emerged, the ancient guardian smiled, a grim, feral smile, because something had gone wrong for the monster. Robert was not just a vessel. He was something the entity didn't expect, a chosen holder. The shadow entity roared in frustration, the air vibrating with pure hatred. Robert collapsed, gasping, trembling, barely conscious. The stone markings dimmed to a faint glow on his chest. The elder stepped forward, limping, bleeding, but resolute, and planted itself between Robert and the entity. It cracked its knuckles, turned its head, and growled 2 words, not with voice, but with a message burned straight into the monster's mind. Not yet. The world around Robert blurred into a haze of dust, light, and sound. His heartbeat pounded in his ears like war drums. He could barely see, barely breathe, barely stay conscious. The glow on his chest faded to a simmering ember, but the burning beneath his skin didn't stop. It felt like something ancient was threading itself through his bones, pulling him into a conflict he was never meant to survive. The elder creature, bleeding, battered, but unbroken, planted its feet in the dirt as the shadow entity loomed over the ruins of the house. Every ounce of its posture radiated defiance. The intelligent creature knelt protectively at Robert's side, chest heaving, one arm draped across him in a desperate shield. It shook with exhaustion and pain, yet refused to move. The feral creature crawled backward until it hit a fallen tree, its breath sputtering in short, panicked bursts. For the first time tonight, the feral one wasn't aggressive. It was traumatized. It understood the nightmare that had been buried beneath this land. The shadow entity's form rippled violently, limbs reshaping into jagged silhouettes like shards of broken night. The air around it warped, bending light, twisting heat, pulling gravity in unnatural directions. Its eyes locked onto Robert. They didn't blink. They didn't waver. Possession, claim, retribution. Those burning eyes wanted only one thing: to make Robert the key that frees it completely. The elder creature roared, a sound that tore the fog apart and cracked the nearby fence posts. It charged with staggering acceleration for its size, kicking up a trail of dirt that curled behind it like the wake of a speeding train. The shadow entity responded instantly, its tendrils snapping outward like whips. The elder dodged the first, deflected the second with a forearm, but the third caught it across the shoulder. A burst of blackened frost exploded from the impact, scorching its fur and charring the flesh beneath. Still, it did not stop. It leapt upward, 8, maybe 10 feet into the air, fists raised overhead. For a moment, it seemed almost mythic, a guardian made of brute force and courage. But the shadow was faster. A massive wave of darkness surged outward, slamming into the elder midair. The blow hit like a collapsing mountain. The elder's body twisted, and it was hurled aside like a toy. It landed with a thunderous crash that shook the field. Pain racked its massive frame, but it pushed itself up again, blood pouring from its jaw. The shadow entity shifted its attention back to Robert, and the intelligent creature immediately rose to its feet, positioning itself between him and the entity. Its legs trembled, its breathing ragged, but its eyes were unwavering. It signed something using its hands, an intricate gesture, fast despite its wounds. Not a threat, not a plea, a vow. Robert didn't understand the meaning, but the elder did. It answered with a low, approving grunt from across the field. Even while trying to stand again, the shadow entity hissed, tendrils rising in a circle around its body. The younger guardian spread its arms wide, pulling Robert behind it as best as a creature that size could. Its chest expanded with a deep inhale, not a roar, but a sound Robert had never heard from it before. A low hum, a vibration, a resonance. The markings on Robert's skin flickered in answer, reacting to the creature's tone. The shadow entity froze for a fraction of a second. Then its voice cracked the sky open. The marked one is mine. Tendrils shot forward. The intelligent guardian moved faster than Robert thought possible. It grabbed a fallen beam and swung it like a war club, intercepting the tendrils mid-strike. The impact blasted the beam into splinters, but it deflected the tendrils just enough to save Robert from being impaled. The shadow entity shrieked in frustration. The air rippled with pressure, forcing Robert onto his back. The intelligent guardian struggled to stay upright, feet carving trenches in the dirt. The elder creature charged again, ribs broken, arm numbed, breathing ragged. But fueled by sheer will, it slammed into the entity's flank, throwing its full weight into the attack. The force sent the shadow stumbling, its form distorting in shock. A tendril lashed outward, piercing deep into the elder's thigh. The wound blackened instantly, but instead of falling, the elder grabbed the tendril with both hands. Smoke rose from its palms as its flesh burned, but it held on. It pulled, and for the first time, the shadow entity recoiled. A roar split the night. Not the elder, not the shadow. Robert. The markings on his chest blazed again, this time bright enough to illuminate the entire field. The intelligent guardian whipped around, eyes widening in alarm. The elder turned sharply, stumbling as a tendril slipped from its burned hands. The feral creature collapsed, covering its head. The shadow entity rose to its full height, towering, expanding, its voice thick with recognition and hunger. The vessel awakens. Robert doubled over, screaming as the markings raced across his arms, back, throat, heat surging beneath the skin until he felt like he was boiling alive. Shapes formed along the markings, spirals, runes, symbols matching those on the stone. His pupils dilated, his vision sharpened, too sharp. He could see every blade of grass, every particle of dust, every tremor in the creature's bodies. He felt his heartbeat slow and strengthen. The intelligent guardian backed away slowly, staring at him with the dawning realization of what he was becoming. The elder creature froze, then lowered its head in a gesture Robert couldn't comprehend. The shadow entity surged forward with triumphant fury. At last, Robert looked up at the monster, his eyes glowing faintly with the same light as a stone. And somewhere, buried beneath the agony, a whisper rose from inside him. Not the entity's voice, not the stone's, his own. No. The shadow entity lashed forward, but the markings on Robert's chest erupted in a shockwave. A blast of energy tore across the field, hurling the feral creature into a ditch, knocking the intelligent guardian to its knees, sending the elder staggering backward, and forcing the shadow entity to recoil violently, its form fracturing. The entity screeched not in victory, but in outrage. Robert collapsed again, unconscious before he hit the dirt. The three Sasquatch stood frozen, staring at him, realizing the truth the shadow had known all along. Robert wasn't just a vessel. He was a new lock, the new seal, whether he wanted it or not. And the shadow entity wasn't going to rest until he was broken and filled and used as the doorway into the world. Robert's consciousness drifted in and out like flickering candlelight. Darkness swirled around him, thick and heavy, not empty but filled with shapes, echoes, memories that weren't his. Voices passed through him, chosen, bound, unsealed, not ready. He floated in a void that felt ancient and suffocating, like being submerged beneath miles of ocean. He tried to speak. He tried to breathe. Something answered him. Not yet. Not awake. Not whole. His body jerked violently. Reality slammed back. He gasped awake, lungs burning, throat raw. The world spun, blurry shapes sharpening into forms he recognized. A barn wall, cracked and half-collapsed. The moon, pale behind drifting clouds. Cold air biting his skin. And 3 towering figures surrounding him, not attacking, not threatening, watching, guarding. The intelligent creature crouched closest, its massive frame lowered, its gaze fixed entirely on Robert's face with an intensity that felt almost protective. Blood matted its fur. Deep claw marks scored its ribs. It had risked everything to shield him. The feral creature stayed farther back, pacing in anxious circles, trembling violently. Its eyes, once wild with aggression, now flickered between Robert and the shadow entity's direction with primal fear. The elder creature stood over them both, its silhouette rising like a mountain carved from darkness. Shoulder burned, thigh blackened, breath ragged. But its posture, despite the injuries, remained unbroken. Robert groaned, pushing himself onto his elbows. The intelligent guardian gently steadied him, one massive hand hovering near his back, but careful not to touch the glowing markings that still faintly pulsed across his skin. "Why?" Robert croaked. "Why me?" He didn't expect an answer, but something stirred in the elder. It stepped forward, slowly, deliberately, and lowered itself into a crouch, bringing its face closer to Robert's level. Its glowing amber eyes reflected firelight from the burning remains of the house. It didn't speak, not with words. Instead, it placed one enormous hand flat on the ground, a gesture of grounding, stabilizing, an anchor. A rumble rose from its chest. Not a threat, not a command, a memory. Robert felt something tug at the edge of his mind. An image, a flicker, the stone in his chest reacting to the creature's presence. A vision washed over him again. A ritual circle in a forgotten forest. Dozens of towering creatures surrounding a pit carved into bedrock. An elder, this elder, holding a glowing stone marked with the same spirals now etched across Robert's skin. A monstrous shadow thrashing inside the pit, a seal being placed over it, a sacrifice, a chosen vessel, a burial site mapped with symbols that matched his property, his land. The vision snapped away violently. Robert's head whipped back from the force of it. He gasped for breath, clutching the dirt to steady himself. The elder watched him without blinking. The whisper inside his mind spoke again. "You inherited the burial ground." Not in words, in pure meaning. His land wasn't his by coincidence. Someone before him knew exactly what they were burying. The intelligent creature tapped its chest, then pointed at Robert, then at the elder, then at the ground. A chain of meaning, a lineage, a chosen successor. Robert shook his head violently. No, there's been a mistake. I can't. The feral creature emitted a frantic, trembling whine. Its gaze locked on something behind Robert. The intelligent one tensed immediately. The elder stood tall again, because the shadow was returning. A wave of unnatural pressure washed across the field. The few remaining upright boards of Robert's house trembled, bending inward toward the crater, as if gravity itself had reversed. The air darkened. Clouds churned overhead. Wind spiraled violently around the ruins. The glowing eyes of the shadow entity flickered into visibility. 2 burning white voids in the swirling mass of darkness. It was larger now, stronger, its form less unstable, less fragmented. It fed on the partial unsealing, on Robert's awakening. The whisper thundered through the air. "Vessel, come." Robert collapsed to one knee as the markings flared in response. A pull tightened in his chest, magnetic, suffocating, inescapable. The stone wanted to return to the shadow. The shadow wanted to own it. And Robert was now the stone's host. The intelligent guardian leapt between them again, chest puffed, arms spread. The elder stepped beside it, massive shoulders rolling as it prepared for another impossible battle. The feral creature, despite its terror, joined them, lowering its head, muscles coiled. All 3 stood in front of Robert, a united front, a triad of ancient guardians, protecting the new seal, protecting him. The shadow entity shrieked, the ground cracking under its voice. Then it surged. A tidal wave of darkness swept across the field, flattening the grass and bending entire fence posts. The guardians roared as one and charged into the oncoming storm. The elder hit the shadow first, smashing through tendrils and breaking the first wave. The feral creature darted to the flank, latching onto a tendril and ripping it apart with frantic strength. The intelligent guardian grabbed a broken beam and struck downward, splitting the darkness like it was made of thick tar. The entity recoiled, but only momentarily. It reformed, stronger than before, and launched a counterattack so powerful it sent the feral creature flying through the air, smashing into a hillside. The intelligent guardian roared in rage. But the shadow's gaze kept drifting back to Robert, dragging him forward like a puppet pulled by invisible strings. His feet slid toward the monster. No, he gasped, digging his nails into the dirt. It didn't matter. The shadow whispered, "You are mine." The pull intensified until his knees buckled. The intelligent guardian saw it and panicked. It sprinted toward Robert, only for the shadow to intercept it mid-run with a tendril that wrapped around its throat and lifted it off the ground. The creature kicked and clawed, but couldn't break free. The elder charged in to help, but the shadow threw the intelligent guardian across the field and whipped the elder backward with a brutal strike to the ribs. All three guardians were failing, and the stone markings on Robert's skin were glowing so brightly it felt like they were branding him from the inside. His body convulsed. His vision sharpened until he could see the shadow's shifting tendrils like threads of energy. He could feel the entities reach inside him. He could sense the ancient seal breaking. He wasn't dying. He was transforming, turning into exactly what the shadow wanted. A living gateway. The elder creature rose again, barely, and looked at Robert with urgency, terror, and something else. A final instruction. A desperate idea. It tapped its chest, raised its arms, spread its stance, then pointed at Robert. It wanted him to copy it, to stand, to anchor, to fight the pull. The intelligent guardian, despite bleeding from its throat, forced itself to kneel and tap the ground twice, urging him. The feral creature howled weakly from the hillside. Robert's hands trembled. His breath stuttered. His limbs felt weak. His chest burned. But he pushed himself up, first to one knee, then to his feet, then into the stance the elder showed him. Feet planted, arms lowered, chest forward. The markings pulsed in sequence. The shadow entity growled. Surprised, threatened, Robert grit his teeth. "I'm not your vessel," he hissed. And for the first time, the glow from his body answered him. A shock wave blasted outward, cracking the earth, staggering the shadow, and knocking back all three guardians, not in harm, but in awe. The entity steadied itself. Its burning eyes narrowed. Awakening! Robert's vision blurred as the power inside him surged. He didn't know what he was becoming, but he knew one thing. The shadow wanted him, and the guardians would die to stop it. As the entity prepared its next assault, Robert took a step forward, not pulled, choosing to, and the night trembled. The air around Robert vibrated, as if reality itself were straining. Each breath he took steamed with white light. The markings across his chest and arms pulsed like molten iron beneath his skin, spreading along his veins in branching paths. In front of him, the shadow entity towered, growing taller, broader, more defined. Its limbs unfurled like liquid obsidian, sculpting itself into a weaponized form. Its edges crackled with flickers of pale fire, like lightning trapped in tar. The ground beneath it withered, grass blackening, soil cracking, frost forming in circular veins that spread outward. The entity inhaled deeply. The world dimmed. Its voice dropped into a resonance, so low it rattled the remains of the barn. "Now, vessel, show me what you are." The intelligent guardian staggered to its feet, gripping its injured throat. The feral creature limped back into the field, driven by instinct rather than courage. The elder stood tall once more, barely, but ready. But something had shifted. All three guardians were no longer fighting to win. They were fighting to keep Robert alive long enough for his power to awaken. They didn't understand it fully. They just knew he held something the shadow feared and craved. Robert raised his head. His eyes glowed faintly, not the shadow's cold white, but a warm, molten gold. A different energy. A rival force. The ancient seal wasn't just a prison. It was a counterweight. a weapon forged from the same primordial force the entity once wielded. Robert just hadn't learned how to control it. Yet, the first strike, the shadow entity lunged. The earth thundered as it launched forward with a speed that bent the air into a shockwave. Tendrils sharpened into spears, slicing toward Robert's heart. The elder intercepted first. It slammed its forearm into tendrils with bone-cracking force, but they punched through its skin. Dark frost spread instantly across the wound. The elder roared in agony but seized the tendrils, pulling them downward to slow the entity's advance. The intelligent guardian sprinted in next, leaping and smashing a fist into the entity's side, breaking off chunks of its shadowy mass. The impact formed a crater 10 feet deep, but the shadow reformed instantly, bigger, angrier, focused entirely on Robert. The feral guardian, shaking with raw adrenaline, bit into the entity's leg, tearing off a massive piece, and screamed as its jaw froze on contact. The entity backhanded it across the field. It skidded like a stone across water and lay motionless. The intelligent guardian roared in grief and fury, swinging wildly, recklessly, tearing through the shadow's mask, but unable to stop it. The elder grabbed the intelligent one's shoulder and barked a guttural command. Hold the line. Protect the seal. The intelligent one nodded, breathing blood. Both squared their stance. But the shadow kept pushing forward, slithering around them with dark grace, always angling toward Robert. Robert felt his knees buckle, not from fear, from something inside him pulling apart, opening like a wound. Light flickered under his skin. The pull toward the shadow tightened like a hook behind his heart. He tried to fight it, but the entity's voice slithered through his skull. You were mine before you were born. His breath hitched. His pulse slowed. His vision whitewashed into static. The ground trembled as the entity raised a colossal tendril high above its head, forming a spear the size of a tree. The intelligent guardian lunged to intercept. Too slow. The elder leapt. Too far. The tendril plunged downward, straight toward Robert's skull. Robert lifted his hand, not out of choice, out of reflex. The markings blazed. A beam of molten gold erupted from his palm, a shockwave of pure harmonic force. It struck the tendril mid-descent. The impact was catastrophic. A ring of energy expanded outward, flattening grass in a perfect circle. The tendril disintegrated into black mist. The shockwave hurled the intelligent guardian back 20 yards. The elder dug its heels into the dirt just to stay upright. The feral creature, barely conscious, twitched as a blast passed over it. The entity reeled backward, its form fracturing violently. For the first time, it screamed, not in rage, in shock. This is not possible. Robert collapsed to one knee, gasping, smoke rising from his skin. His hand trembled violently. The markings pulsed with unstable light. His bones felt like they were vibrating apart. The elder stared at him in disbelief. The intelligent guardian's eyes widened with recognition. The feral creature whimpered in awe. Robert wasn't a vessel. He was an awakened seal, a living embodiment of the ancient counterforce that once imprisoned the shadow. He could hurt it. He could contain it. He could destroy it. If he survived the counterattack. The shadow entity rose again, larger, darker, angrier. Its voice shuddered across the field. You have no idea what you hold. Tendrils shot outward in all directions. The intelligent guardian leaped in front of Robert again, absorbing 2 strikes that shattered bone. The elder took 3 to the chest, dropping to one knee. The feral creature limped forward, attempting a final stance. Robert staggered to his feet. He raised his hand again, but the light sputtered. He didn't know how to aim it, didn't know how to summon it, didn't know how to withstand the pain. The elder barked something, loud, commanding. The intelligent guardian shouted back. The elder repeated itself, piercing, urgent. The intelligent guardian picked up a rock and slammed it against its own chest where Robert's markings glowed, then pointed at Robert's chest, then at the entity, then at the sky. Robert stared, confused. What were you trying to say? The elder pounded its chest again, mimicking rhythm, a pattern. The intelligent guardian repeated it. Thump, 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 thump. Robert's markings responded, flickering in the same rhythm. He understood. The power wasn't activated by force. It was activated by resonance, by rhythm, by intent. The Guardians weren't showing him a gesture. They were showing him the trigger. Robert inhaled deeply. He placed his hand on his chest, matching their rhythm. Thump, 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 thump. The markings flared. Light surged. The shadow entity reacted instantly, firing every tendril edge straight at him. The intelligent Guardian dove to block, but Robert shoved it aside. "I can do this," he whispered. And for the first time, he meant it. He stepped forward toward the oncoming darkness. His eyes glowed gold. His veins burned with ancient power. He raised both hands, and the markings ignited. A pillar of golden light erupted from his body, exploding into the sky like a miniature sun. The tendrils disintegrated upon contact. The shadow entity screamed as its entire form destabilized. The ground cracked beneath its feet. Smoke billowed from its chest. Its eyes flickered, but it wasn't defeated, only wounded, only enraged. Robert collapsed, barely conscious, his energy drained to near death. The Guardians rushed to him, but the shadow entity pulled itself together and whispered a final, chilling promise. "If you are the new seal, then I will break you." It spread into a massive storm of darkness and rolled across the valley toward the town beyond the tree-line. The Guardians froze. It wasn't after Robert anymore. It was after the world. And Robert, still shivering on the ground, felt the truth. He alone could stop it. But each use of the power was killing him. The shadow storm rolled over the far tree-line like a living nightfall, swallowing moonlight, distorting shapes, bending the world into unnatural angles. Branches snapped beneath its weight. Animals fled in frantic silence. His valley, was being consumed. Robert lay weakly in the flattened grass, breath sharp, skin burning from the golden energy he had summoned. The markings on his chest still glowed faint but unstable, flickering like a dying ember. His body shook with aftershocks, his muscles twitching involuntarily. The elder creature knelt beside him, placing one massive hand near Robert's shoulder. Not touching, but close enough to steady him with its presence. The intelligent Guardian crouched on his other side, gripping the earth in panic as it watched the expanding shadow tear through the woods. The Pharaoh one limped in behind them, ears pinned back, breath rattling. For the first time, all three Guardians looked not like unstoppable beings, but soldiers on the edge of losing everything. Robert forced himself up onto his elbows. What is it doing? The elder looked toward the distant storm. The meaning hit him like a cold tide. It's feeding, growing, preparing. The intelligent Guardian lifted its head and released a low, mournful sound, a farewell tone, ancient and solemn, not for itself, for him, because it knew the truth. This wouldn't end until Robert used the power again, and using it again might be the last thing he ever did. Robert clenched his jaw. "I'm not letting that thing touch anyone else." He forced himself to stand. His legs buckled. The elder caught him, steadying him gently before letting him stand on his own weight. The shadow storm reached the valley ridge. Lights flickered in the distant town. A scream drifted faintly through the night. The entity was already siphoning life, already shaping itself into something even the Guardians feared. Robert swallowed the rising panic. "Take me to it." All three Guardians froze. The intelligent one snarled, "No." Not in a word, but through a desperate shake of its head, its hand pressed to his chest. The elder stepped forward, blocking his path, eyes hard with refusal. But Robert pushed past them, staggering at first, then walking with steadier steps strengthened by resolve. "You said I'm the seal," Robert rasped. "Then sealing this thing is my job now." The Pharaoh Guardian whined, pacing anxiously. The intelligent one lowered its head, agonized acceptance. The elder finally stepped aside. Not permission, recognition. They would follow him. The journey through the darkened forest felt unreal, dreamlike. Trees twisted at odd angles where the shadow had passed. Frost-coated leaves in spirals. The ground pulsed faintly, as if holding its breath. The Guardians flanked him, elder in front, intelligent on his right, Pharaoh on his left. Three ancient protectors. One mortal becoming something more. They reached the ridge. Below them, the shadow entity towered over the valley, now fully formed into a monstrous silhouette, 20 feet tall, arms spreading like wings of smoke. It consumed everything, air, light, life. Houses stood dark. Streetlights flickered. A lone car sat abandoned in the road. And at its core, those burning white eyes. It sensed Robert instantly. It turned its head sharply. You cannot run from your purpose. Robert stepped forward through the trembling ground. I'm not running, he whispered. Not anymore. The markings across his entire body ignited, not violently, not painfully, but steadily, purposefully. The elder watched him with a mixture of awe and sorrow. The intelligent guardian pressed his forehead briefly to his shoulder, a blessing. The Pharaoh one crouched low, preparing to charge one final time. Robert inhaled deeply. His heartbeat synced with the markings. Slow, steady, rhythmic, thump, 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 thump. He felt the ancient resonance open inside him, not tearing him apart this time, but aligning him. Strength surged through his limbs. His vision cleared. The entity's tendrils stilled, sensing the change. The elder roared a war cry and charged. The intelligent guardian followed, limping but fearless. The Pharaoh one bounded beside them, no longer afraid. Robert stepped into the valley. The entity struck first. Tendrils shot outward like spears. The guardians met them with brute force. The elder snapped two in its fists, shattering them into black dust. The intelligent one wrestled a tendril twice its size, holding it at bay. The Pharaoh one lunged at the entity's leg, teeth sinking deep. The entity roared in fury. It reared back and drove a massive strike downward. The shock wave threw the guardians aside like leaves in a hurricane. The elder crashed into a boulder. The intelligent guardian slid across the asphalt. The Pharaoh creature screamed in pain as it struck a fallen log. The entity turned to Robert. The world opens when you fall. It lunged, and Robert raised both glowing hands. Golden light erupted not outward, not widely, but in a precise column directly toward the entity's core. The beam pierced the shadow's chest, blasting through it like a cannon shot. The entity buckled, its form contorted, flickering violently. The ground cracked beneath Robert's feet. His legs nearly gave out. Blood trickled from his nose, then his ears. He forced himself to stay standing. The entity shrieked. You cannot survive this. Robert stumbled forward, pushing through the howling wind. Maybe not, he whispered, but I can make sure you don't either. The markings reached peak brilliance. Blinding, searing, spreading across every inch of his skin. His entire body became the seal. Robert slammed both palms against the entity's chest. Golden cracks spread across the shadow creature like fractures in glass. Light poured out of the openings, and the shadow recoiled in terror. No, no, no. You are not ready. You are not. Robert screamed as he poured every last ounce of strength into the expanding seal. The golden light engulfed the entity entirely. Its form shattered into 1,000 shards of darkness. Each piece shrieked as it was drawn inward, into Robert's chest, into the markings, into the seal. The ground trembled. The sky split with lightning. The guardians shielded their faces, roaring in agony at the blinding radiance. The entity was pulled piece by piece into the burning seal, fighting, screaming, fading, until the valley fell silent. The light dimmed, and Robert collapsed to the ground, motionless. The wind stopped. The frost faded. The valley exhaled. The elder approached first, cautiously, reverently. It knelt beside Robert, placed a massive hand gently on his chest. The intelligent guardian crawled forward, battered, limping, eyes full of grief. The Pharaoh one approached last, whimpering softly. All three leaned close, and the markings on Robert's chest glowed faintly. Alive, but quiet, contained, stable. The elder closed his eyes and released a long, heavy exhale, a sound of acceptance. Robert's fingers twitched. He inhaled shakily, eyes fluttering open. You're still here, he whispered to the guardians. They all bowed their heads, not just in respect, but gratitude. Relief. The elder touched his shoulder, a silent acknowledgement that he had fulfilled the role thrust upon him, and survived it. The intelligent guardian helped him sit. The feral one rested its head in his lap, trembling softly. The valley was safe. The entity was sealed. The war was over. For now. Robert looked at the scorched earth, the broken trees, the distant lights of the town still standing. He whispered, "What happens now?" The elder turned to him, eyes glowing softly, and pointed toward the mountains. A long journey, a new purpose, a path only he could walk now. Robert stood slowly, leaning on the intelligent guardian for support. "I guess I follow you," he murmured. All three guardians bowed in agreement, and under the quiet stars of a valley that had nearly been destroyed, Robert Hale walked into the wilderness flanked by three ancient giants, not as prey, not as a witness, not as a victim, but as the new keeper of the seal. The night closed behind them, and the world remained safe, because a simple man became the barrier between it and something that should never wake again.